Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at AI and blockchain in Europe.
Okay.
You've given us a really fascinating mix of sources,
Yeah.
reports on EU investments, national strategies,
Hmm.
the whole shebang.
Yeah.
What we're trying to figure out is this. Where does Europe stand in this global tech race? Let's find out.
One of the things that jumps out from these sources is the potential for Europe to be a bit of a dark horse in this race.
Ooh, a dark horse. I like it. What makes you say that?
Well, you actually have a massive advantage right here in Europe.
Okay.
Nearly twice as many AI researchers as the US, and 3 times that of China.
Wow.
We're talking about a talent pool of around 40,000 specialists,
Okay.
compared to roughly 30,000 in the US and 20,000 in China. That's a talent pool just waiting to be unleashed.
Wow, that's incredible. I honestly would have thought Silicon Valley would be leading the pack by a mile.
It's a common misconception.
Hmm.
And it's not just about the sheer numbers.
Okay.
Europe also seems to be specializing in some pretty crucial AI areas, like robotics and automation and AI services,
Yeah.
things like smart factories, precision agriculture, even healthcare robots.
So you've got the brains, you're focusing on some pretty important areas, but I'm sensing a but coming.
You're right. The big but is that Europe seems to be having trouble turning all this research power into actual economic wins.
Okay.
And one of the main culprits, according to these sources, is a pretty significant investment gap.
Ah, the money trail. So how big of a gap are we talking here? Give me the number.
Get ready for this. The EU invests roughly 1.75 billion annually in AI and blockchain. Now,
No.
that might sound like a decent chunk of change,
Rest
but
dollars, but
compare that to the whopping 16 billion the US throws at these technologies every year.
wow.
I mean, you're looking at an annual investment gap of somewhere between 5 billion and 10 billion euros. We're not just talking a gap, it's more like a canyon.
Okay, so we're seeing a huge difference in investment, but what kind of investments are we mainly talking about here? Is it all venture capital, or are we looking at a different picture?
The biggest gap seems to be in equity investments,
Okay.
particularly for those companies in the later stages of financing, think Series A, funding rounds, and beyond. That's the money that helps promising startups really scale up and compete on a global level.
Mm-hmm.
From what we see in these sources, early stage funding might not be as much of a problem in Europe,
Okay.
but securing those larger investments down the line is a major bottleneck.
So startups can get off the ground, but getting to that next level seems to be the real struggle, especially if you're a young company trying to compete with companies swimming in Silicon Valley money.
Exactly. And while these sources point to debt financing, especially venture debt, as a possible solution,
Okay.
it looks like it's not being fully utilized in Europe.
Right.
Which leads us to the next big question. Why does this gap exist in the first place? Is it just a cultural thing, or are there some more concrete obstacles at play?
Yeah, what's holding Europe back? Help us understand this better.
It seems like it's a mix of factors, both on the demand side and the supply side. On the demand side, one of the key issues is that European companies, especially those big corporations, don't seem as keen on investing in R&D compared to their U.S. counterparts.
So even if all the brilliant researchers are there, companies aren't necessarily jumping in to turn those ideas into something tangible.
It appears so.
Mm.
And another issue on the demand side is the difficulty European companies face in scaling up.
Okay.
One report mentions the fragmented digital market as a hurdle. It limits access to those mass data sets that are crucial for AI development,
Right.
not to mention navigating all the different regulations across each member state.
I imagine that fragmentation can be a real pain, especially for a new company trying to figure out all those different rules and regulations.
Absolutely. And then there are the bottlenecks on the supply side.
Okay.
One major factor is the limited number of venture capital funds in Europe that really specialize in AI and blockchain. That lack of specialization can result in a lack of expertise when it comes to assessing these complex technologies and their potential impact.
So it's not just about throwing money at the problem. It's about having investors who actually get what they're investing in.
Exactly. And adding to that, European venture capitalists are often seen as being a bit more risk-averse compared to those in the U.S. They tend to prefer companies that show quick returns, rather than backing those developing potentially groundbreaking technologies that might take a bit longer to mature.
That makes sense from a financial standpoint, but it could also stifle innovation if those bolder ventures aren't getting the support they need to truly flourish.
Exactly. And the final piece of the supply side puzzle is the lack of big institutional investors like pension funds. This just shrinks the pool of that critical late-stage funding that companies need to truly grow and become major players on a global scale.
So it's almost a chicken and egg situation. Companies need funding to scale, but investors hesitate without seeing more companies successfully scaling. It's a tough cycle to break. What are your thoughts on that?
You've hit the nail on the head. But before we get too bogged down in the doom and gloom, the sources also point out that it's not all bad news for Europe.
Okay, give us some good news. What's looking promising?
The EU is actively trying to address these hurdles, funneling billions into AI and blockchain development through programs like the Digital Europe Program, InvestEU, and Horizon Europe.
So there's hope. These programs sound promising. What are they doing specifically?
Well, the Digital Europe Program, for example, is all about supporting the digital transformation of European society and the economy.
Okay.
It has a budget of over 7.5 billion and covers a wide range of areas, including AI, cybersecurity, and digital skills development.
That sounds pretty broad. But what about specific support for AI and blockchain startups? What's in it for them?
One really interesting initiative is the European Investment Fund's AI and Blockchain Pilot Program.
Okay.
It aims to attract private investors to this space by offering them a first loss guarantee.
So it's like a safety net for investors, encouraging them to take a chance on those early stage AI and blockchain companies.
Precisely. And it seems to be working. This pilot program has already pulled in over 100 million euros in private investment, which indicates a growing interest in this sector.
That's fantastic news. But we also talked about the need for more specialized venture capital funds in Europe. What's being done to address that?
The report suggests that the European Investment Fund could support the creation of new venture capital funds, specifically focused on AI and blockchain. This could involve providing seed funding or offering guarantees to attract private investors.
It's all about building that ecosystem from the ground up, isn't it? Making sure there are enough investors who really understand these technologies and are willing to take a chance on promising startups.
Exactly. And it's not just about the money itself.
Okay.
The report stresses the need for more collaboration and knowledge transfer between all the different players in the ecosystem. This includes universities, research institutions, startups, big corporations, even government agencies.
So it's about building those networks and connections, fostering a culture of innovation and collaboration. Are there any specific initiatives aimed at doing that?
One of the key initiatives are those digital innovation hubs, or DIHs, that we mentioned earlier. These hubs are intended to be physical spaces where all these stakeholders can come together, exchange ideas, and work together on projects.
They sound like a great concept, but how effective are they in reality? Are they actually making a difference?
It's still early days,
Yeah.
but there are some encouraging examples. There's a DIH in Finland, for example, that's focusing on AI and robotics in healthcare. They've brought together hospitals, universities, and tech companies to develop and test new AI-powered solutions for patient care.
So it's not just the theory, it's happening with real-world applications. That's really exciting. But what about the role of individual countries in all of this? We mentioned that some countries like Germany, France, and Italy have their own national AI strategies. How do these national initiatives fit into the bigger European picture?
That's a great question. And it highlights the importance of collaboration and coordination between different levels of governance. Ideally, those national AI strategies should complement and reinforce the EU's overall vision for AI development. Think of it as a synergistic effect.
So it's not about every country doing its own thing. It's about working together towards shared goals.
Exactly. And this is especially critical when you're dealing with things like data sharing and regulatory harmonization. Those can be tricky to handle at the national level.
Right. A fragmented approach could actually hinder innovation and make things harder for companies working across different countries.
Absolutely. And this is where the EU can play a crucial role, facilitating dialogue, setting standards, and creating a more unified approach to AI and blockchain regulation.
So it's about finding that balance between national autonomy and European-level coordination.
Exactly. It's a delicate balancing act.
Right.
But if Europe gets it right, it has the potential to create a really powerful and dynamic ecosystem for AI and blockchain innovation.
It sounds like Europe is really starting to step up and create the right environment for AI and blockchain to flourish. But there's obviously still a lot of work to be done. What would you say are some key takeaways from all of this, both for policymakers and for individuals who are interested in this whole AI and blockchain scene?
I think a big takeaway is that Europe has all the potential to be a major player in the AI and blockchain revolution,
Okay.
but it needs to be strategic and decisive to overcome those challenges we talked about.
Right.
This means investing more in research and development, supporting those specialized venture capital funds, fostering a culture of innovation and collaboration, and making sure ethical considerations are central to any AI and blockchain development.
Those are some excellent points. And for the average person out there, what does all of this mean for them? How can they get involved and contribute to this emerging ecosystem?
That's a great question. One of the most important things anyone can do is stay informed about these technologies and their potential impact.
Okay.
There are tons of resources available, podcasts like this one, books, articles, online courses.
It's all about being an informed citizen, right? Understanding the implications of these technologies so you can participate in the conversation and make informed decisions.
Exactly. And for those who want to dive in deeper, there are always opportunities to join hackathons, attend conferences, or even volunteer with organizations working on AI and blockchain projects.
So there's a role for everyone, from policymakers and investors to developers and everyday people.
Absolutely. This is a technological revolution that's going to affect every part of our lives.
Right.
So it's important that we all have a say in how it unfolds.
Well said.
Okay.
Okay, I have one last question for you. If you could give one piece of advice to a young European entrepreneur thinking about starting an AI or blockchain company, what would it be?
That's a tough one. But I think my advice would be this. Don't be afraid to dream big, but be prepared to be patient and persistent.
Yep.
Building a successful company takes time, especially in a field as complex and rapidly changing as AI or blockchain. Build a talented team, find mentors who can guide you, and don't give up on your vision, even when things get tough.
I love that. Dream big, be patient, and never give up. Those are words to live by, not just for entrepreneurs, but for all of us.
Absolutely. And remember, Europe needs you. Your innovation and creativity could help create a better future for everyone.
That's a great point to end on. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive into AI and blockchain in Europe.
Yeah.
We've explored the challenges, the opportunities, and the potential for Europe to become a global leader in this space. But we're not done yet. There's so much more to uncover, and we'll be diving into some really fascinating topics in part 2.
I can't wait. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back to our deep dive into AI and blockchain in Europe.
I'm really excited to continue our exploration. We've talked about the challenges Europe faces,
Yeah.
but I'm curious about the potential opportunities. What are some areas where Europe could really shine?
It's interesting to consider that Europe's focus on trustworthy AI could become a significant competitive advantage.
We touched on that earlier.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to hear more about why you think that's the case. What makes you so optimistic about trustworthy AI?
Think about it this way. As AI becomes more and more woven into our daily lives,
Right.
those concerns about privacy, fairness, and accountability are only going to increase.
Yeah.
If Europe can establish itself as a leader in developing and implementing ethical AI frameworks,
Okay.
it could become a trusted source for these technologies
Right.
that could attract both investment and talent.
So Europe could position itself as the ethical AI hub of the world. It's a pretty powerful idea,
Yeah,
especially in a world that's becoming increasingly wary of AI's implications.
exactly. And it's not just about appealing to consumers concerned about these issues.
Right.
It's also about attracting businesses that want to use AI responsibly and make sure they're on the right side of regulations.
I can see that no company wants to end up in a PR nightmare because their AI was biased or used unethically.
Exactly. And Europe is well positioned to lead in this area.
Okay.
You've got a strong history of data protection regulations like GDPR and a deep-rooted emphasis on human rights.
It sounds like a perfect storm of opportunity. But beyond ethics, are there any other areas where Europe could make a real impact in the world of AI and blockchain?
The report points to Europe's strengths in specific AI domains. We talked about its leadership in robotics earlier.
Yeah.
That expertise could be further leveraged to develop some truly innovative solutions for industries like manufacturing,
Okay.
healthcare, and even agriculture.
Automating those labor-intensive tasks, making things more efficient, I can see the appeal. What would that look like in practice?
Imagine a future where European-made robots are the standard in manufacturing plants,
Okay.
logistics hubs, even hospitals and farms all over the world.
Okay, now you're painting a picture I can get behind.
Yeah.
And what about AI services? Where does Europe's advantage come into play there?
AI services is a broader category.
Yeah.
It covers all those applications of AI that aren't tied directly to hardware,
Right.
like robotics. This could include things like AI-powered software for data analytics, cybersecurity, customer service, even personalized medicine.
So it's like the brains behind the operation,
Right.
right? The algorithms, the insights, the analysis that drives innovation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this is where Europe's solid foundation in software development and that focus on data privacy could give it a real advantage.
Okay.
Imagine a world where European companies are the go-to for AI-powered services
Right.
that are not only highly effective, but also ethically sound,
Okay.
attracting customers who value both performance and responsibility.
It's a win-win. You get cutting-edge technology that you can also feel good about using. I like it. I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like Europe's strengths really lie in areas where human values and societal impact intersect with technological progress.
That's a sharp observation. And it speaks to the idea that Europe doesn't necessarily need to follow the Silicon Valley playbook to be successful. It can forge its own path by focusing on areas that align with its unique strengths and values.
Instead of trying to win a race on pure processing power or coding prowess, Europe could focus on leading the charge in AI and blockchain solutions that are both innovative and responsible solutions that people can trust and feel good about using.
Exactly. It's about creating a more sustainable and inclusive technological future, not just for Europe, but for everyone.
It's a beautiful vision, but let's get back to the practical side of things for a moment.
Mm.
How can Europe bridge that investment gap we discussed and create the right conditions for this AI and blockchain ecosystem to really thrive? What needs to happen?
Well, the report lays out a number of recommendations and initiatives that are already in motion.
Okay.
On the funding side, you've got programs like the Digital Europe Program, InvestEU, and Horizon Europe. These are pumping billions of euros into AI and blockchain development.
We mentioned those earlier, but it would be helpful to understand how they actually work. What kind of impact are they having? Can you give us some specific examples?
Of course. The Digital Europe Program, for example, is specifically designed to support the digital transformation of European society and the economy.
Okay.
It's got a budget of over 7.5 billion euros and covers a wide range of areas, including AI, cybersecurity, and digital skills.
Okay, so it's a pretty broad program, but what about targeted support for AI and blockchain startups specifically?
Remember the European Investment Fund's AI and blockchain pilot program we talked about?
Yes.
That's a great example. It's designed to attract private investors to the sector by providing them with a first loss guarantee.
Right. That safety net for investors, making it less risky to back those early-stage AI and blockchain companies. It sounds promising.
It is, and the initial results are encouraging. That pilot program has attracted over 100 million euros in private investment so far.
That's wonderful to hear. But we also discussed the need for more specialized venture capital funds in Europe. Are there any initiatives that aim to tackle that issue?
The report recommends that the European Investment Fund support the creation of new venture capital funds specifically focused on AI and blockchain.
Okay.
They could provide seed funding or offer guarantees to bring in private investors.
So building that ecosystem from the ground up, making sure there are enough investors who understand these technologies and are ready to back those promising startups.
Exactly. But it's not just about the money.
Right.
The report also emphasizes the need for more collaboration and knowledge transfer between different players in the ecosystem.
Okay.
We're talking universities, research institutions, startups, large corporations, even government agencies. Everyone needs to be talking.
Creating those networks and connections, fostering a culture of innovation and collaboration. Those digital innovation hubs, or DIHs that we talked about, are those a part of that effort?
They are. Those DIH are meant to be physical spaces where these different stakeholders can come together, share ideas, and collaborate on projects.
They sound great in theory, but are they actually effective? Are they making a real difference on the ground?
It's still early, but there are some promising examples.
Okay.
For instance, there's a DIH in Finland focusing on AI and robotics in healthcare. They brought together hospitals, universities, and tech companies to develop and test new AI-powered solutions for patient care.
That's amazing. It's not just a concept. It's happening in the real world with real applications.
And similar hubs are popping up all over Europe,
Oh, wow.
each with its own unique focus and specialization. This is a movement that's gaining traction.
It sounds like Europe is really mobilizing its resources and creating the conditions for a vibrant AI and blockchain ecosystem. But I'm curious about the role individual countries play in all of this. We mentioned that some countries, like Germany, France, and Italy, have their own national AI strategies. How do those fit into the broader European vision?
That's an important point. And it highlights the need for strong collaboration and coordination between different levels of governance.
Yeah.
In an ideal scenario, those national AI strategies would work in harmony with the EU's overall vision for AI development,
Okay.
creating a kind of synergy where the sum is greater than the parts.
So it's not about each country going it alone, it's about working together toward common goal.
Exactly.
Uh,
And this is especially crucial when it comes to things like data sharing and regulatory harmonization.
right.
Those can be tricky to navigate at the national level.
Because a fragmented approach could hinder innovation and create barriers for companies operating across different countries.
Precisely. The EU can play a critical role here in facilitating dialogue, setting standards, and promoting a more unified approach to AI and blockchain regulation.
It's about striking that balance between national autonomy and European-level coordination, finding that sweet spot where everyone benefits.
You got it.
Yeah.
And if Europe can get this right, it has the potential to create a truly powerful and dynamic ecosystem for AI and blockchain innovation.
It's starting to feel like a real possibility, not just a pipe dream. But let's step back for a moment and think about the bigger picture. What would you say are the key takeaways for both policymakers and everyday people who are interested in the future of AI and blockchain? What do we need to keep in mind?
One of the biggest takeaways is that Europe has everything it needs to be a leader in the AI and blockchain revolution.
Ugh.
You've got the talent, the research, the values,
Right.
and the ambition. What's needed now is focus,
Okay.
investment, and collaboration
Uh-huh.
to turn that potential into a reality.
Those are fantastic points. But for the average person, what does this all mean? How can they get involved and contribute to this emerging ecosystem?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
I think one of the most important things anyone can do is to stay informed about these technologies and their potential impact. There are so many resources out there, podcasts like this one, books, articles, online courses.
It's all about being an informed citizen, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the implications of these technologies so you can participate in the conversation and make informed decisions.
Exactly. And for those who want to be more hands-on,
Mm-hmm.
there are opportunities to join hackathons, go to conferences, or even volunteer with organizations working on AI and blockchain projects.
So there's a role for everyone, from policymakers and investors to developers and everyday people who are passionate about this technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This is a technological revolution that will touch every aspect of our lives.
right.
It's important that we all have a voice in shaping its future.
I couldn't agree more. All right, one final question for you. If you could offer one piece of advice to a young European entrepreneur who's thinking about launching an AI or blockchain company, what would it be?
That's a tough one. But I think my advice would be this. Don't be afraid to dream big,
Okay.
but be prepared to be patient and persistent.
Hmm.
Building a successful company takes time, especially in a field as complex and rapidly evolving as AI or blockchain. Surround yourself with a talented team. Find mentors who can guide you. And don't give up on your vision, even when things get tough.
I love that dream big, be patient, and never give up words to live by, not just for entrepreneurs, but for all of us.
Absolutely. And remember, Europe needs you. Your innovation and creativity can help shape a better future for everyone.
What an inspiring message.
It's not just about the technology itself.
Right.
It's about the kind of future we want to build.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
We've covered so much ground in this second part of our deep dive into AI and blockchain in Europe, exploring the incredible potential and some inspiring solutions to the challenges we discussed earlier. But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to examine those specific areas where Europe has a distinct advantage and could truly excel. We'll be back after a short break to uncover those hidden gems. We're back for the final part of our deep dive into AI and blockchain in Europe. We've talked about the investment landscape, the potential for trustworthy AI to be a real differentiator, and some inspiring initiatives that are already making a difference. But before we wrap up, I want to go back to a few specific points that really caught my attention in the source material.
I'm all ears. Lay them on me.
Okay, the first one is this concept of Europe's revealed comparative advantage in certain AI domains.
Yeah.
The report specifically mentioned robotics and AI services. What exactly does that mean, and why should we care?
That's a great point to bring up. Revealed comparative advantage essentially means that a country or region is producing and exporting a specific product or service at a higher rate than you'd expect based on its overall economic output. It's like they've found a niche where they really excel.
So it's not just about being good at something.
No.
It's about being disproportionately good at it
Yeah,
compared to other things you could be doing.
that's exactly it. And when we look at Europe, this revealed comparative advantage in robotics and AI services suggests that these are areas where it could truly shine on a global stage.
It's like focusing on your strengths, right? But how does this translate into real opportunities for European companies and investors? Give us some concrete examples.
We'll take robotics, for example.
Yeah.
Europe has the potential to become the world leader in developing and exporting advanced robots for a wide range of applications.
Okay.
Manufacturing, logistics, healthcare, even agriculture. Imagine a future where European-made robots are building cars in Germany, delivering packages in France, assisting surgeons in Italy, and even harvesting crops in Spain.
That's a future I want to live in. Sign me up.
And what about AI services? What does that comparative advantage look like in action?
AI services are a bit more broad.
Yeah.
It's about all those AI applications that aren't directly tied to hardware like robotics.
Right.
This could include things like AI-powered software for data analytics, cybersecurity, customer service, even personalized medicine.
So it's more about the brains behind the machines,
Yeah,
the algorithms, the data analysis, those insights that really drive innovation.
you got it. And this is where Europe's strong foundation in software development and that emphasis on data privacy could really give it an edge. Imagine a world where European companies are providing AI-powered services that are not only highly effective, but also ethically sound.
Right.
They would attract customers who care about both performance and responsibility.
I'm starting to see how these comparative advantages could become real economic drivers for Europe.
Yeah.
But let's switch gears for a second and talk about something that's been on my mind. ICOs.
The report mentioned them as a possible funding alternative for AI and blockchain startups. I remember when ICOs were all the rage a few years ago.
Yeah.
But then they kind of disappeared. Are they making a comeback? What's the latest?
It's an interesting development. And the answer might be yes.
Okay.
ICOs definitely have the potential to be a valuable funding tool for startups in this space,
Right.
especially given those challenges we talked about with traditional venture capital.
Right, because ICOs allow startups to raise capital directly from a global pool of investors without having to go through those traditional gatekeepers like venture capital firms.
Exactly.
It's a more direct route.
Exactly. And this can be a real game changer for startups developing disruptive technologies that might not fit neatly into those traditional investment categories.
Yeah.
They need investors who understand their vision.
But let's be realistic. There are risks involved, right? We've all heard those stories about ICO scams and the volatility of the cryptocurrency market. It can be a wild ride.
You're absolutely right. Those are valid concerns. And anyone approaching ICOs needs to proceed with caution. I think the key here is regulation.
Okay.
If European regulators can create a clear and robust framework for ICOs that protects investors
Right.
while still fostering innovation,
Okay.
it could become a legitimate and valuable funding option for AI and blockchain startups.
It's about finding that sweet spot, right? Protecting investors while still encouraging innovation. Can Europe pull that off?
Europe has a strong track record when it comes to balancing those two priorities.
Okay.
Look at GDPR, for example.
It's an ambitious goal, but I'm hopeful. It would be a shame for Europe to miss out on the potential of ICOs.
Yeah,
Especially given the funding gap we've been discussing.
I agree. It's definitely a space worth watching.
Okay, one last thing before we wrap things up. The report made a distinction between vertical and horizontal AI technologies. Can you explain what that means and why it matters?
It's a crucial distinction to understand. Vertical AI technologies are basically designed for a specific industry or application. For example, an AI system used to diagnose medical images or optimize logistics for a delivery company would be considered a vertical AI technology.
Okay.
It has a specific purpose.
So vertical AI is about using AI to solve very specific problems within a particular field.
Exactly. Horizontal AI technologies, on the other hand, are those that can be applied across a wide range of industries and applications.
Okay.
Think of things like natural language processing, which allows computers to understand and process human language, or machine learning, which enables computers to learn from data without being specifically programmed. These are tools with broad applications.
So vertical is specialized, horizontal is more general purpose.
That's a great way to put it. And this distinction matters because it influences the types of companies and investors that gravitate towards each area.
Right.
As we talked about earlier, European venture capitalists tend to favor companies developing those vertical AI technologies that can demonstrate quick results and market traction.
Right, because they're seen as less risky, with a faster path to profitability.
It's exactly. Horizontal AI technologies often require more upfront investment and a longer time horizon to develop.
Okay.
But they also have the potential to be much more disruptive and game-changing. That's why large corporations, with their deeper pockets and long-term investment strategies,
Yeah.
are often more interested in horizontal AI.
It sounds like understanding the different dynamics at play is key, both in terms of the technologies themselves and the investment landscape.
Absolutely. And for Europe to be successful in both vertical and horizontal AI,
Right.
it needs to create a supportive ecosystem that caters to the needs of both types of companies.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, I think we've covered just about everything. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we sign off?
If I had to leave you with one key takeaway, it would be this. Europe has all the ingredients it needs to be a leader in the AI and blockchain revolution. You've got the talent, the research, the values, and the ambition. What's needed now is the focus, the investment, and the collaboration to make that potential a reality.
I love that. It's a call to action for everyone listening.
This isn't just about technology. It's about what kind of future we want to create. And that's a discussion we all need to be a part of.
So true. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.